Welcome everyone to our event, Will AI Take Over the Animation Industry? Today, we have guests from DreamWorks, Adobe, Pixomondo, and Disney, and we're going to be discussing what does the future look like for big studios. AI is being talked in all industries, but we want to be specific. So in this webinar, we're going to clarify what things could change, what things can't change, what is going with the investments of executive, where are they looking at? So that we as artists can prepare and get ready. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Let's start with Adriel. Please tell us where you're from, what do you do? Let's start with that.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So good to meet you guys. My name is Adriel. I'm originally from Montreal. I grew up in the States. And as far as what I do, I'm in the animation space. I'm a character designer and biz dev artist with experience working at Disney on Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, as well as Nickelodeon on Monster High and on Bubble Guppies. And most recently, I wrapped up work at Monkey Paw Productions doing character design there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Let's go with Steven.
Hello, folks. My name is Steven Quiñones. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and I've been working in VFX since around 2000. All of my career has been lighting, so lighting for 3D, both in animated films and in VFX. And I'm currently working at Pixomondo in Canada.
Perfect. All right, let's go with Michael.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Tanzillo. I'm originally from Chicago. I was born in Chicago, grew up in Columbus, Ohio, grad school, Savannah, Georgia, moved out to New York, where I lived for about 15 years. I was a lighting artist at, by the way, it's starting to rain. I might have to move inside. I was a lighting artist at Blue Sky Studios for 13 years. I worked on 10 films my time there. Towards the end, I became the head of training for the studio. I was training new artists and helping create a new pipeline. After Blue Sky closed, I came over to the Substance 3D team at Adobe. I'm the head of 3D technical artists here and a role called solution consultants. And so I work with the Substance team at Adobe now.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that's actually my yard. I live in Berkeley, California. I was saying this is bamboo. It grows like crazy. I do not recommend planting it anywhere around you. But I'm going to shut my camera off for just a second as I move inside.
Let's excuse Mike one moment. And let's go with Emily.
Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Abele. I am a lighting and compositing artist, originally from Rochester, New York, and now I live and work in LA. I've worked for studios like DreamWorks, Titmouse, Luma, and Method Studios. I'm in animation and visual effects as well.
Thank you so much. Lastly, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Sam Pagan. I'm a lighting and compositing artist. I've been working in the industry for 5 years. My biggest achievement so far has been working at Nickelodeon at a show called Rugrats, the reboot. And I also freelance for Star Trek. And for the past year and a half, I teach, I help students build their portfolios. And I also make events like this so I can help the community. Now that we have introduce ourselves, I would like to do a dynamic with you guys. The dynamic is the following. Us as panelists, we're going to see the comment section, and you, the attendees, are going to write, what do you think? Why do you think the animation industry is down? What have you heard? What's going on? And us panelists, we're going to look at the comments, and we're going to see what misinformation there is. Let's see where the attendees are at, and let's clarify any comment. Steven's going to pick one comment. Emily's going to pick one comment. Michael's going to pick one comment, and we're all going to tell you what we think. So please let us know in the comment section, why do you think the animation industry is down? Why are there no jobs? What do you know? Some people say it's still recovering from the writer's strike. Dilara says, is capitalism a valid answer? There are no new shows being produced. I've heard after the big hiring that happened during the COVID, now studios are downsizing.
Nice. I could chat a little bit about like the shows being produced and things of that nature. I talked in our previous talk about how like a lot of the industry professionals are experiencing the fact that during COVID, there was almost like a baby boom of animation. People were overproducing and like the budgets were getting completely blown out because now they were cutting on cost by having everyone move from home. So they were creating shows left and right. But we were experiencing something that was like a quantity over quality, and they have since had to pull back the basis on that. So now they're in a position where a couple of shows stuck. Like we had some good seasons of Big Mouth, etc. But they're trying to navigate the space by creating new content that's going to push together a culture forward. So in my experience, what they're really trying to like, it's almost like they're trying to do a dance with the audience members. They're trying to find out if we are going to drop something, what's going to A, sell. So capitalism is definitely a factor, but B, what are the audience members going to like? And I find that on the big studio scales, they're almost, like I said, it's a dance because they're trying to do a responsive thing where they're like, okay, we want to make a conventional TV show for network, but we noticed not a lot of people are even watching shows on networks now. Now people are shifting towards YouTube and they're shifting towards like short form content like TikTok. So do we make a show that's short form and we put it on TikTok? And then are we doing it like a trend based? Are we even doing a normal character arc for a normal story now anymore? So they're trying to navigate kind of the response in that regard. And then you have a lot of instances where like I have some friends of mine that are at Disney and shows are getting developed on a daily basis. Like people are working on pilots, but a friend of mine has worked on like 5 pilots since working at Disney, and none of the pilots have gotten greenlit. So there's still that thing where, okay, we have almost like a fruit that's growing. Is it ripe? Is it ripe? Is it ripe? Maybe we should do that, etc. So that's probably a little bit. I'll probably have some more thoughts as more people talk, but those are my initial impressions on just kind of like the content saturation. And a lot of studios are a little bit like frugal with the money, trying to make sure that they're betting on winners. So that's why they'd much rather do like a reboot of Phineas and Ferb versus making something like the Sam and Adriel show that no one's ever heard of. Who are Sam and Adriel? What?
Yeah. Backing that up, it's been extremely difficult to pitch anything lately. Studios will say, we love this. This is a great idea. This is fantastic. We'd love to make it, but we're looking for something in our existing IP. We're looking for this, we're looking for that, because they have all these IPs that they're either sitting on or that they own the rights to. So they're looking for something with that built-in audience, with that guaranteed return on investment. So it's very hard to get original stories made. And that's part of the reason why we're seeing so many reboots and sequels. It's extremely safe, and they know it will at least make some money.
Yes, that's one of the things that they're really risk averse right now. That's one of the things that nobody wants to jump in the pool first. Everybody's waiting to see what's happening, what's going on, what's going to be the next thing, and that's always a difficult place to be whenever you're trying to pitch something or you're trying to get jobs, and you were trying to bid for things. It's just really, really hard. All the executives are really trying to see what's going to be next. Things like AI, things like who's going to be our next partner. Right now, with the new election, it seems like we're going to get a lot of consolidation because perhaps it is thought that they're going to allow a lot of consolidation to happen that before was not allowed. So the studios are probably going like, who can I acquire? So they're holding back and making movies because they're thinking about spending billions of dollars and buying somebody else. So those are some of the things that are happening right now.
Yeah, and I agree with all those points. And a big part of it is I think a big chunk was, I mean, it's there's no simple answer, right? There's no one thing that's the reason why the animation industry died. Yes, it's a writer's strike. Yes, it's COVID. Yes, there's global economic conditions that don't make it. From the studio standpoint, yeah, like you say, I mean, think about it from their perspective. It's like they spent $150 million to make an animated feature, right? They get to release one of those every 18 months, 9 to 18 months. That's their whole thing for a whole year. Like they don't have multiple products. They don't have this, they don't have that. Like that's the thing they're releasing. They have to make sure that it's as profitable as it can be. And as somebody who gets who got paid to do that, like we crashed Box Office Mojo the day that one of the Ice Age movies came out because we were so concerned about like box office release. Because it's like if the movie doesn't do well, we lose our jobs. That's it. Like you don't get a second chance at it because the budget, the investment is too high. in terms of like, yeah, the COVID stuff, like look at Pixar. Pixar is a great example of this. So they had a formula where I think it was something, and it's something like this. So every 2 years they wanted to release 3 feature films. And when Disney Plus came out, they were like, cool, let's do 3 feature films plus 2 animated short series for Disney Plus. Awesome. That means more people. We need more artists. They increased. Then the streaming, yeah, there's like, actually the streaming thing, we're not profiting off of it the way that we thought. It's not as much of a financial boom as we thought it was going to be. Let's just go back to making 3 features. That means layoffs, because then you have people that aren't making the thing that you hired them to make anymore. So that's why they laid off whatever it was, like 15% of their staff, was because of this decision to stop making original content for streaming services. So that's a lot of that's a lot of what's going on. And again, that's a combination of overhiring during COVID because everyone was at home consuming more media than we ever thought people could possibly do. Companies became cash rich and so used that to hire as many people. There was a bit of a gold rush to bring in as much talent as they possibly could. And now it's the pendulum swinging the other way, which is unfortunate for a lot of people, and it's awful in a lot of cases. But we saw this in 2008 when like I said, being older than everybody else, we've been through this before. This isn't the first time. There's a .com bubble crash in like 2000 that did this again. It's a cyclical thing. This one feels harder because it's probably worse than what I've seen in the past, but it's nothing, globally. It's nothing new, frankly. It's just it'll happen again. There's ebbs and flows to the business.
And I think bottom line is Netflix won. That is the bottom line of everything.
They didn't really win, though.
Well, right now they're the only ones who are making money with streaming. So,
allegedly making money on streaming. They don't release any numbers for a very good reason, and it's because personally, I don't think they've ever made the profits that they've said they've been making without seeing the numbers. All conjecture. But studios don't like to release those numbers because then they can be used against them, or they can be used, by workers to justify increased wages or hiring, rightfully so, if they're making the profit they say they're making. But then we see them not act on said profit, but, line goes up somehow.
So, but Netflix is like a publicly traded company, though, right? Like, doesn't that mean that they have to release profit statements and stuff?
They do, but it takes a while for everything to sort of like, and it's on a quarter by quarter basis, so it takes a little while for you to find out what really truly happened. Yeah. But they don't release viewership stuff.
Yeah, they don't release their viewership.
They aggregate that. They don't do it in a way that you can figure out things. You can figure out some things, not everything.
Yeah.
But I am hoping that with the release of Arcane Season 2, we start to see those numbers go up a little bit.
I'd love the numbers to go up.
Oh, yeah.
But not all of us can have Riot money.
That's very true.
God, I want that. All of us who work in animation look at their budget and go, please. It's a little bit bloated because they did inject like a ton of their own money for marketing. So that 250 million is a little bit, I say a little bit high. It's quite higher than the actual budget. And if you think about it, that amount of money spent on 18 episodes over 6+ years doesn't really equate to much on the side of Fortiche as a vendor, especially because they're in a country where there are subsidies for the arts. So I'm sure that money was spent, but where it was spent would be very interesting to see. And of course, we'll never get those numbers, but French wages, European wages, Australian wages, Korean, Japanese wages, they're so low, but the profits are so high. And it's like, where are we spending this money? Where is it going? Because it's certainly not to the people making the product at their desk every day.
It sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. Mm-hmm. When you stretch it out over that many episodes and all that, it's not as outlandish as it seems.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
250 is a U.S. in-house produced feature film. Yeah, and that's over 3 to 4, 5 years. So
yeah, And then you see there were some articles that got released that were also kind of like comparing the numbers up against something like Rings of Power that had a budget of $65 million an episode. So they were still saying that although like 250 million was definitely like the clickbait title, if you actually start laying it out, it was a pretty conservative amount, or like you said, almost like a healthy amount for over the span of the episodes they had.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then. Well, thank you everyone for your input. I hope everyone on our attendee list benefit from this inside information. But that's the most accurate we can get until this point, November 2024. We constantly get bombarded with AI marketing, with the new tech. There's not a single day that we don't get like, this is gonna be the end of the world. Of course, they want part of marketing is fear. Fear gets attention. And the reason I want to make events like this is that if I gather professionals that have context of how production works, then we can talk to the artist that hear the all the noise in social media and tell you, look, this is how production is. This is our needs, and this is how it could or could not happen. So what I want to do right now, I want to showcase two videos. I'm going to share my screen to showcase a few AI features they're launching right now and I want our panelists to react if this is something significant or not. So let me share my screen.
I would very much like it if you could just like do it with your mouth. Like just make the sounds and like
dub it over for us live. Do it live.
Do a dub over.
Do it live.
Ad lib it.
Who wants to be red-haired character?
Well, right now, they're saying how in Maya you can have different camera scenes and AI can convert whatever scene you have in Maya into controlling the lighting, controlling the textures. As you can see, this doesn't have any textures. And that anything can be editable. And then the acting comes from that footage on the left.
So it looks like they're using it as a substitution for like mocap.
Yeah, it's like a mocap.
At this point, this is just mocap.
Yeah,
yeah, and it'll have the same. It'll just have the same thing where like that's not clean enough animation for any high end production. Like somebody would have to go in and clean that up and perhaps get it from scratch because like the performances, the true. I mean, I'm not an animator, but I can see that the true performances of the characters aren't being translated into the performance of the 3D characters. Like it's just not good enough. And even then, it's like we don't. Sorry, we don't animate characters in films to be like people. They never are. They are like go frame by frame through stuff. Like the tricks that the animators are amazing on animated films, right? Like they're not just replicating what we can do. Like there's like extreme stretching and squashing and insane movements and that kind of thing. Like that's cool. Like that was a product that Autodesk bought and incorporated into Maya. Cool, awesome, Brad. But it's for feature animation for like a lot of high end things. It's not going to be good enough. Like most because sorry, I'll stop talking here in just a second. But that is that. But that kind of stuff is what is problematic about AI. Is like the way that it's framed. It's like, here is the finished product. Like, no, it's not. Like, that's not the way any of this stuff is. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants like the finished product out of the box kind of a thing. Because there's no control over it. There's no yada, yada, yada. But that is an interesting thing. Like you plug straight into Maya, gives you some keyframes. It looks like it's built into the rig that you can continue to control. If it shortens the process for you and your workflow, awesome, go for it. But like, yeah, it's just a replacement for mocap at this point.
I would agree. And it also seems like it's something that would be used at the very, very early stages, almost like in previs. So if anything, it would help / it would impede on the previs pipeline. But yeah, this is something where you would take it, like you said, and pretty much use it for the workflow. And if anything, it could be used as well to like on a smaller scale studio, make stuff like mocap a little bit more accessible to the people that don't have the means to be able to go into a mocap studio. But I completely agree that it's someone at a studio, like an exec, would be like, okay, awesome, maybe you have the framing or you have the timing down, but still need an animator on this.
Maybe it's because I come from an engineering background, but I created an entire mocap suite with a couple connects. You can do a lot with a little money. And if anything, that was a fine blocking pass. But that's not final animation. That's not really anything. And the lighting, I see mentions of lighting in chat. The lighting on the characters and the lighting in the scene didn't match. And if you're controlling the lighting, we're all lighters here. We're like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing.
Not even close. Not even close.
But we have, we have Unreal Engine, we have real-time lighting. They're not showing anything truly innovative here. They're showing changes to an existing workflow that impedes the workflow.
Mm.
It'll just make life harder for all of us.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that whenever you're in the industry, you start to see all the difficulties, so the things that are not going to help you. Although it looks kind of cool, and it is cool because you have somebody walking, all of a sudden you have an animated character on top of it, which looks kind of neat. The problem that you run into is that if you show this to an executive or if you show this to a client, you run into the problem that they might freak out when they see something like this, just because it doesn't look like what they expect. And now they have that image in their head forever until you finish that shot, and you're just going to be in trouble. You're just going to be in a world of hurt. And that's the kind of thing that you have to be really, really, really careful about what you show somebody, because you just can get in a horrible circle that you can't get out of. So this could be, I think, at the how it looks like now, is something that could perhaps help you to do blocking. Is perhaps something that can help you to like, okay, I want to see what the story feels like, perhaps something like that. But that cannot be something that can be customer facing in any way. It's just people would, you would get in so much trouble for doing something like that. So it is going to get better. I think once eventually, I don't know how long, but it will eventually get really good. But it's kind of like what Michael was saying, it's still a person walking. A person walking is not animation. That's the problem. The person walking is just not animation. So you can get yourself in trouble more than you can help you.
And that's, yeah. And that last assumption of like, oh, but it'll get better. Like, I don't know. Like there's data that's not in the 2D thing. Like what happens when the character's arm goes behind their back? Like what's going on back there? Like what, like we don't know. I made this assumption 20 years ago when self-driving cars first came out. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to be everywhere. It's going to change everything. I was like all on board with it. Like it's been around for a really long time. I've much longer than, So it's like, maybe longer than that. I don't know. But 20 years ago, I was aware of it as like, okay, this is going to cure drunk driving and traffic and all these things. And I got all on board with it. And everyone's like, in 5 years, there won't be long haul truckers, right? That won't be a job that exists because they'll just be self-driving cars. And here we are in 2024. And we've got some cars that can kind of parallel park themselves a little. I live in San Francisco. There's Waymo that moves people around, but only like a very constrained area. So it's like, it works because we just kept saying, we've seen this exponential growth of them early. It's just going to keep on getting better. And then we hit the nuance and then we hit the really hard stuff. And it's just kind of like hitting a brick wall. I have an electric bike. That's what I read. Right. So, like we're not to that point yet. And I think that assumption that here we are, we've seen this like huge growth to, I would say we're at like 70%. Like we've talked about this, like like with that video that you just displayed, it got it to a certain point. Let's call that 70%. That last 30%, man, it's not linear at all. It just like the complexity escalates, like, because all of us saw media things. Also, I'm not convinced that the background, I'm not sure what that setup was. I'm not sure if that was just capturing just the movement of the characters or it was doing the entire environment. I think it was just like I don't know.
Play it
I'm
again,
not sure.
Sam.
Yeah, play it again. So I think they built all of the characters and all the geometry in Maya.
Because those are not. They've got the, we can make 3D models, Gen AI, and you look at the mesh and it makes you want to vomit.
Well, most of that, like
all we want as artists, I'm just going to say it. If AI can do UVs, I'll allow it. It can take over. It can take over UVs. Everyone has been asking for this. I think the interesting thing with AI is that we as artists beg for certain tools. I would love auto UVs. People have been asking for auto UVs my entire career, before my career even started. We still don't have it.
It's hard.
It's not for lack of trying. Yeah, I mean, honest to God, like
everyone in the comments agrees.
Yeah, no, I agree too. I work on Substance. I work on the leading like texture tool. We were working on it. We have.
Where is it, Michael?
Tell me, where do you want the AI to make your scenes? I don't know. We don't know. Like, so we've got. We're working on it. We've got auto UVs in Painter now that does the best that it can at this point. But again, like, there's more that goes into it. So it's like my shirt. It's like we need, you need the seams in very specific points.
Mm-hmm.
It's being worked on by absolutely brilliant people doing the best they can. So it's hard. It's just hard. It's like, I want to go to Mars, man.
I know.
I've been saying it since I was 5 years old. I want to go to Mars, and no one will take me there.
I write tools. I know, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm just being mean.
No. It's all good.
But yeah, to go back to that, it does look like they have had to create an environment that is similar to the environment they shot the people on. But that's at that point, that's just reference. That's just layout footage. That's nothing new.
Yeah. And the thing is, as artists, if we buy into the idea that AI can replace us, whenever up there they figure out, oh, we still need them, they can make these narratives like, you're so lucky that you have a job, like feel fortunate that your salary or anything like that. But in reality, that every artist has their skills and their value to provide in production, and those are the things that actually provide the profit that the companies really want. I'm going to show you another video of, this time is going to be Runway. This time I'll just let the video speak.
Am I looking here? Straight up a little bit.
What? You're gonna fire me because there's hot milk everywhere on the floor of the coffee shop? I mean, it's one latte. It's not that big of a deal.
Everything's fine. Everything's totally great. This is gonna be the best day ever.
Smashed my phone the other night.
And you know how much I love that phone.
Okay, all right. Just breathe. Okay, maybe don't breathe that hard. Who knew there were so many kinds of beans to choose from? Fava, black, kidney, butter, white beans.
Now you're surprised.
Oh, wow.
I'm beginning to think that you don't understand the gravity of this situation.
You came all the way down to the Department of Motor Vehicles and didn't bring your driver's license?
Guys, settle down. Everyone, settle down, please.
I don't know how to be sad without closing my eyes. Perfect. We got it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is it.
All right, who's next?
Michael, what do you think?
Glad to jump in first. I mean, it's a gimmick. Like, I mean, cool. I think, but again, it kind of falls in the same category. I have several questions. One, someone mentioned the lip sync doesn't sync up. Yeah, it doesn't sync up. There's a lot of missed data in there. Again, the quality isn't good enough. It's not up to par. And I also there's two big things that I look for in those kind of things. It's like, one, show me the next shot, show me two shots from a different angle, and make sure that they match up. As a lighting artist, all of us have done this. It's like, let's A/B that for the shot before and the shot after. We'll play it in sequence. Like, it doesn't matter how good an individual shot is on a film. It has to make sense in the story. The color of the character's hair has to be exactly the same from shot to shot to shot. The color, the angle of the background, the lighting on the background, same shot to shot to shot. So one shot, cool, awesome. The other one is, do I actually have control over that stuff? I think that's probably one and done. Now, don't get me wrong. We're talking about feature animation. We're talking about the highest and the best of the images that can be produced using a computer. I totally recognize that there are other, there's like infographic type videos. There's other lower end 3D content that this can be used to help. But again, if we're talking about animated films, it's not close. This one is not useful.
Mm-hmm. It wouldn't even pass muster for animated TV.
Yeah.
I have worked with vendors. I've communicated directly with our vendor studios. This will not replace anyone in the capacity that they think it will. As the chat has said, it's a Snapchat filter. And we are seeing these shots in a commercial. We're seeing them in an advertisement. And I've worked on some commercials. Show it to me live. Show it to me without cleanup. And I know even if they've got the screen there, I've done screen replacements. So even doing it live, that footage is touched up and then tracked to that phone screen. This is not indicative of whatever Runway's ability, if it has any ability. It's cleaned up, and if that's the cleaned up version, if that's what they're choosing to show, that's still not really anything. It's a fun gimmick for people who don't work professionally or, VTubers, but I've seen better rigs for VTubers than anything we just saw in that video. People like making cool art. And this is for people who don't have the capacity to create.
And in my opinion, if you're going to present this at a professional level, in a way, it's almost doing a disservice to the audience. You're almost expecting the audience to take this as like, oh, this is Disney, this is Pixar. And they're not trusting the fact that the audience member, we can view quality, we can see quality. There's a reason we go to the big studios for these quality products. And when we're looking at like these kind of glorified Snapchat filters, for lack of a better word, I think the words that Michael and Emily use, like gimmick, is really the word. It's like, we're kind of like, gotcha, like, hey, this is Disney, like I appreciate it as what it is. And we can see straight through it. Like, that's why even when it comes to the point of like, let's say we have one shot and then someone wants to take like a children's book and make the children's book into AI. And that's like a whole narrative. No one is going to read that and get an ethos out of it. Everyone can see straight through what it is at the moment that it is now. And yeah, in my opinion, especially if you're going to be trusting your storytelling with an audience, it's just a way, it's doing a disservice. So at a lower level, for sure, like if you're trying to communicate something fast, effective, and efficiently, and just kind of doing that gotcha for that level, it works. But at a higher level, that's going to be pushing culture. I don't think it passes the test, unfortunately.
Yeah, this one I find it a little bit more interesting. But the thing that it's more interesting to me is that Runway made a deal with Lionsgate.
Oh, yeah.
To train all of their movies with this technology and then create tools for people like us that work in VFX companies and stuff like that. So to me, that's what's interesting about this, because I can't tell what is it that they're thinking of doing. And, there's no way for us to see that. We don't have any visibility on it. But it's going to be interesting. What is it that they think that they can do? I'm not sure. And I can't, out of my head, I cannot think what is it that they're going to do, but they're doing it. And they decided not to sue them. Instead, they decided to partner with them. So that sort of tells you that, they have their heads in somewhere down the line to do something But at the same time, I cannot imagine somebody like Tom Cruise or whatever letting themselves be touched by this thing, right? Or somebody like any of the famous directors, they will say, absolutely not. You will not touch a frame of my movie with this stuff. But I could see, Lionsgate going to a director that is starting up and saying, oh, well, I can give you, $15 million. What can you do for $15 million? Can you show me something that's interesting? They have a script that is interesting that we can use this thing on. And, and you do 10 of those movies and maybe one hits. I don't know, instead of spending $100 million on Tom Cruise, so that's kind of like the kind of thing that I see them doing. They're going to try to play the game, play the numbers game and say, okay, either I spend 250 on this with Fortiche, or what can I do for 100? Remember, these people are bean counters. That's what you got to think about. They're thinking, okay, what's my, X return? What's my ROI? And that's when they're going to start thinking, okay, we can do this or that and maybe hit it in a couple of times, or we can spend $260 million on Tom Cruise. What's going to win out? That's where things get gray,
I think you described it really well as getting in on the game and getting in early, because they don't know what they're going to use this for. Mm-hmm. And they are just trying, just in case it goes somewhere, to get a foothold in. And it's very messy because SAG, they struck over likeness rights. You still can't use someone's likeness in something like a game or an animated IP if you don't have the rights to their likeness, even if they're a real person in that IP somewhere else. There's, at least in the US, there are different laws that sort of right now dictate how things can be used. Maybe those will change with time, but there's just training it on films. When it gets down to it, if you don't have the rights to what you're working with or what you're creating, or if you don't have the likeness rights for someone, there's a novella. I'd call it a novella. It's a short novel, The Futurological Congress, which they made a film based on it called The Congress, starring Robin Wright. And I've been pushing this one for years because it involves the selling of your likeness into a digital form. And this came out long before generative AI and all of these issues surrounding, can we scan somebody in for $500 and then never have to pay an extra again? Or can we train on all of these films because we distributed them, so we have the rights? It gets very tricky legally. And there are some countries where things are allowed and some countries where it's not. I think going forward, seeing how those laws change and how things pan out is going to be more interesting, at least to me personally. I love legal stuff. More interesting to me personally than seeing whatever trash Lionsgate comes out with this potential technology that they're just, it's venture capitalism just in a form that people can see this time.
I agree. It also makes me think of just 3 points while people were talking a little earlier with what Steven said about Lionsgate. I think the headline that caught my attention with the Lionsgate thing is apparently their goal was to try to almost eradicate storyboard artists, specifically with that. So they're trying to train them on shot composition and to replace the storyboarding thing. And then that brings me to another point of especially now people are starting to do disclaimers. Like if you saw that headline about how The Heretic, the movie that just came out, they're doing disclaimers in the credits stating nothing about this movie was done with generative AI. I think people are going to start taking a lot more of a hard stance when it comes to creating content. Yeah, yeah. And then there's one more point. I just completely lost it, but it's going to come back. Ethics. That's, I think we might get down to this a little bit later on, but one of the things that intrigues me about this, while we are going through like that gold rush or like the Wild West era, people trying to get a foothold in it, I think it's going to really boil down to the ethics of it. People are going to say, how far is too far? Where are we going to draw that line in the sand? And where are these kind of like little areas that we can play, the little play zones going to be, to the point where we're not disturbing people, but we're also pushing things forward. And unfortunately, you have people that are on the extremes of either side of that. You have early adopters that are trying to wake up and have AI like make them coffee, and you have people that don't even want to touch an iPhone. And all those people are going to try to meet in the middle to see where the line's going to be drawn.
And we know how ethical movie studios are, right?
Yep.
No comment.
Ethic is a dollar sign.
For me, but since I know of generative AI, I use AI every day, ChatGPT, to learn about anything. It's my number one source of education because I can follow up questions. So if I'm learning anything about business or I want to build a website or anything, here's my personal tutorial. And now that it reads images, I can even for example, I can do a layout in Canva. It's like, hey, do you have any feedback for me? It's like, oh, well, if you made this letter this different color, then it would highlight this word and the audience can look at that and it'll be more appealing. And then I'll make those changes and go back and ask for feedback again. So I've been using it almost every day to learn about things that I personally find interesting. And what I've realized is that AI is amazing, but it needs a director. It needs somebody, a captain who needs to sail the ship, to point out where's it going. Because if you say, oh, make me a social media post about this, well, it will be very generic. It has no context. It's not pointed towards anyone. And most of the time when I'm using ChatGPT or Hemingway, I use Hemingway a lot for writing. I typically write first. He'll polish what I have to do. Then there's some things that I didn't mean about the writing. And then I'll edit whatever the AI is helping me with. So at the end, I think that replace is a strong word because replace means we get rid of everything we have. And now from now on, we only use this. And if anything, if things get really, really good with AI and it gets to big studios and stuff, for you to stand out in the market, AI will be more of an enhancer, not a replacement, where you can make research and you can have previs and stuff like that. But art has always been about pushing the limits, having context of what's going on in the popular culture. It has to be appealing. What can you say? What can you not? What does your brand represent? And if in the past you're known for something, like you did something wrong, and then the AI puts that, it will kick your film out because people didn't like that. Reminds them of a bad situation you made as a company. So from a brand perspective, you still need humans to supervise those things. And lastly, I hear collected information very interesting about writing with ChatGPT, which is, according to a study done by New York bestselling author Neil Patel, human written content had 5.4 times more engagement than AI written content in a period of 5 months. This study was made.
I mean, of course, like all AI can ever do is be an average of other things. They can never do anything creative or unique. It's just not what it's set up to do. And like, we are going to use it as a tool. The way that, it's just going to be a tool to aid people however they like want going forward. It's not going to be a replacement for everything. I mean, as 3D artists, it's like a lot of what we do is a trick, is a shortcut. Like rendering is a shortcut. Like it's we're setting parameters, we're setting things up, we're setting sample sizes, position of lights, all that stuff. We click render. Like I didn't write the render engine, somebody else did. I'm leveraging that to speed up my workflow. Like I see a lot of this stuff as like, imagine you were a Disney 2D animator in 1993. And you had just worked on Lion King or something, and you're an effects artist, and you're drawing all the rain droplets and splashes of water and fire and smoke effects. And you see a preview of something like a 3D software that can simulate that stuff. And then if it was today, it would be Twitter of like, oh, all you are going down, RIP 2D artist, blah, 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 like all that garbage. But the fact is that we now have Houdini and all these other incredible sim tools. But you can't just hit sim and go. It can't just be like water splash go. Like there are artists that need to be there to use those tools in a performance, right? Like that is the thing. Like if what we wanted was like photorealistic splashes, like we've had engines that can do that for a while. Like we need someone to garner their performance of it. Then all of us that have been through animated film production in the past, like the ability to produce images quickly is not what slows down production. Like we can produce images really fast today. Like how much of it is like the story? How much of it is like getting director time? How much of it is like all these other nuances? And like Pixar, Disney, DreamWorks, like Sony, all Illumination, all the good films are not great because they made the images quickly. It's because a group of people made a really good story. Mm-hmm. Like, and AI is not going to replace that. Like if you want AI to spit out a bunch of like scripts for stories and read through them all and find the one gem in it, like that's not the way it's going to go. And it's like it's people that make this process unique, not because it's fun. It's not because it's what we want to do. It's because it's what makes the best product, right? It's what makes something at the end of the day that's the best.
Yeah. And even spitting out scripts, how many stories are there over the years of, an assistant getting a script on their desk that's not necessarily the big script, but a human looked at it and went, this is actually really good. Let's do this. Machines can't do that. Machines can only take the information that is given to them and then produce an output based on that. It's glorified machine learning. And I mean, we use a form of AI for stuff all the time, but you can't just hit denoise on something and have it be perfect. If that were the case, you wouldn't need to change the input on a denoiser. You wouldn't need to isolate it. You wouldn't need to work in separate channels. You wouldn't need to, take out one layer in an EXR and just denoise that layer. Like the tools that we have and the things that we use still need someone with knowledge to steer them, to provide the input. And I think a really good example that we have right now that is actually blowing up on social media is the animation software Moho. And I believe they're a European company. I want to say French, but I could be totally wrong. And they've been showing off their really cool in-betweens and these really intuitive rigging things. But you still need somebody who knows the software and who can create the characters to do the poses, to create the thing that goes into it. It won't simply make a good product without an artist behind it.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I've been working on visual effects since 1999, and I have never, ever shown a shot to any director, and they told me it's beautiful, don't change anything. Never. And it will never happen. Because as long as you have a person in the decision chain, they will want to put their stamp on it. And they want to change it just because that's how you express yourself, by saying, okay, I want this in this way. And that's part of filmmaking. That's what filmmaking is about. You getting together with somebody and say, well, how about this? How about this? How about that? This way or that way, redder, bluer, whatever. That's what it's about. And that's what's fun about it. Because if they just make it for you, then what's the use of it? Am I going to go and, take a walk then instead? What's the use of it?
I did it one time. One time, like I showed a shot, and they were like, "It's good." One time, I mean, like thousands of shots. One time, and it was like a 12 frame shot of a guy looking at a book. That was it.
You'd think that's enough. I've been told to move. DreamWorks Feature used to do their stereo in-house, and it was done by the post department. So I was light comp and stereo. Migraine central, let me tell you. But I was told it was like a 12 frame shot. It was so quick. And the director and the stereographer were like, could you take that snowflake that is on the screen for 2 frames in the bottom right? We need you to shift it over 1 pixel in the left eye.
Yeah.
You got it. This is what I'm paid to do. But really? Really? There is always notes. There will never not be notes.
That's why I want to take everybody that I know into dailies or rounds one time and just see the level of detail that goes into it. Yeah. And it's also like, it's the same thing. Let's go back to the AI thing. So everybody that like posts like, this is the end of Pixar, or this is the end of DreamWorks, and they show some Runway thing, like click on, like none of them have ever been in that room. They don't know. It's like everybody that you talk to about AI, and I do a lot. Like it's whatever industry, like they're always like I'm like, oh man, I'm talking to my journalist friend, and I'm like, dude, writing has got to be. He's like, we're fine. He's like, we're reporting on news. We're like writing unique. It's our voice. It's our style. Like, I'm not worried about AI. But he's like, but I'm worried about artists. I'm like, don't worry about us. We're fine. Like we've got these tools. Like you don't understand. So it's a lot of like, fashion designers. Oh, what about these 3D, AI fashion design things? Fashion designers like, no, that's not how it works. So when you talk to people who are actually in the thing, actually doing the thing, none of them are actually like that worried about it. For the most part. I mean, obviously, I've worked in this industry for 20 plus years. I've been around many the sky is falling people who tell me every like 3 weeks that the sky is falling for various reasons. Mocap, the sky was falling for mocap. Like every iteration of things, the sky is falling. But overall, when you like sample it out large enough, the majority of people are not concerned about it because they know what it takes to actually make these productions. It's like a graphic designer, like a logo designer. Like, oh, AI logo design is going to be the end. Like, those are horrible. So I just think at the end of the day, it's the worst. I think AI is like generative AI is the worst sales pitch in the history of the world because it was pitched by people who don't know the industry that you're in, don't know how it's going to affect you, but claim it's going to ruin your life. And they're like, why aren't artists excited about this? I wonder. It's like, because you said it was going to replace me, and it's like, never mind. So it's like, it's all these awful things. So I would say if you're on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, whatever, and you see somebody like saying something like this AI is going to replace you, just click their bio. Just who are they? Just if they haven't done the thing that they're claiming or it's going to replace, they don't know. Yeah. And I'm saying that as somebody who came out of the animation industry and in my last few years at Adobe, like I now work with like automotive companies and fashion designers and like all these different groups. I didn't know those industries before I started. Like I really had to ask a lot of questions and like taken years to like study it and all that stuff. So you don't know, you definitely don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. That's true. It's not going to be. Some people will lose their jobs. Yes, some people. But that happens with any change in technology. It's not a thing that is going to be necessarily a incredible change. But some of those people as well will do other things. It really matters what you're doing and which business you're in and all that. But if you're really, really worried about it, I would say do something that is physical. Do something that it's in the real world. Do a painting, do a sculpture, fix a car. Those are the things that until the robots take over, nobody can do. So there's always something that you can do. You can't really sit back and wait for something to happen. You have to go and do it. And as long as you're doing something, it's going to help you. You just got to find your spot. That's the bottom line for everything. And that's not just for art or whatever, medicine, being a lawyer, whatever. You have to find your spot. That's for everybody.
And I think one of the greatest things you guys can do in general is just to inform yourself. Like what Michael was saying, a lot of these people that are like, the sky is falling, it's like it's almost like a hysteria, or it's based off of the limited information when you're going into those people. Like you were saying, check their bios. It's people that are, like, for example, I went to a conference a little while ago and someone pointed out this graph to me. So I'm going to test everyone's imagination for a little bit just to visualize a graph. But you're going to have, like, on your y-axis, you have hysteria and hype. And on your x-axis, you have time. And the way that they have described it is right now we're in that period where the hype and the hysteria is high. People are either gunning for it or they're completely afraid of something that they don't know. The AI, it's on the forefront. AI is going to be taking over our jobs. AI is amazing. Like Elon Musk, et cetera, et cetera. And then pretty soon we're going to have a crash period where people realize, like what Michael was saying, it's not really going to be affecting fashion design. It's not really good. I'm good as a journalist. I'm good, etc. And then we're going to have a slow period where people start finding ways for it to either plateau or for it to be integrated in their lifestyle. So people will either be on the polar side where they're not doing anything with AI, or we might find someone that's doing UVs in AI, something like that. And then we're going to reach a normal level where everyone is just going to be progressing forward until the next big thing. So that being said, I myself, like what was said earlier, I have not experienced a position of like AI is going to take our jobs, especially at the creative level, like at Disney doing like visual development and character design. Everyone's Mid-Journey can spit out an image immediately. It's going to take your job, etc. No one at the studio is using Mid-Journey. We're just like, oh, that's the thing. It's a little kid in the corner that's screaming really loud, like Mid-Journey. The loudest voice is going to be the voice that you can hear for sure, but it's not affecting our day-to-day lives. And the best thing you could do is be informed. So me using that analogy, I could be aware that kid is over there. I could be aware that this is going on, and I can understand the kind of what Stephen was saying earlier, finding your footing on how you are going to navigate that. If I see that it's something that's a threat to me, maybe I need to improve my skills a little bit more. If I see that it's something that's a threat to me, maybe I can find a way where I can pivot my skills, go from digital to physical, then find a way to integrate physicality into it. So yeah, I wouldn't, it's one of those things where just like a tsunami wave, we're going to see the AI thing creep slowly over time. It is something that's going to be coming, but the best thing we could do is fortify and just find a way to navigate it. Because otherwise, yeah. That's probably my main take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember when we started doing 3D animation in 3D, everybody that was a 2D animator was freaking out, and for a good reason. A lot of people actually did left their jobs, but guess what? Now everybody wants to do 2D now, because so it's like Michael was saying before, it's cyclical. Things come and go in waves. And of course, yes, it sucks if you're the 2D animator that at that point, find themselves laid out. But the thing is that those 2D animators had something that was invaluable for 3D. They knew about timing, spacing, all of those things that you have to know if you're animated. You cannot be an animator without knowing those things. Right? And even if you could move a little ball or whatever it is in 3D, the guy who's been doing it for 10 years in 2D is going to run circles around you. So, there's always ways in which you can use whatever it is that and move it into the new thing. There's always a way.
Yeah. And even CG has changed so much since it was introduced. I'm a member of IATSE 8 through 9, the Animation Guild, and I did a deep dive on our CG side letters because I'm a CG artist. I need to know the contract I work under. It is fascinating to see when this contract was bargained back in the late 90s, because you were either an animator or modeler or you were something else. And it's so strange to think that that's how it used to be, because now we have, specialized FX who just do hair. We have people who just do crowd animation. We have people who just do, and I say just like it's not an insane skill that they've perfected. We have these subsets because we need these niche skills, because we need people who do them. And it's just another facet of industry change, and something that we'll see over and over again. Motion capture, groundbreaking, awesome tool, but it's a tool. It's not going to replace animation. It's not going to replace live action. It's not, it's not coming for our jobs. And like you said, Stephen, people have lost and will lose their jobs. But as I believe Michael also correctly pointed out, we saw a massive hiring boom in the start of COVID. And now companies are sort of right sizing, scaling down. And we see this shift to, offshoring, especially here in the US. But it's something that's been done since before I was born. We've been offshoring television production for years. We still offshore television production. We're just seeing another shift, and it does suck. I was impacted by these layoffs. I'm not super worried about it. It's just another industry shift. And we're going to see things change. And one of the best parts about our industry and about us as creatives is that we are adaptable. We like creating our art. We're going to learn the things that we need to do to continue to make that art. And whatever form that takes, that's the form it will take. But, you always need somebody to fix the product that somebody thinks is a good idea. So.
And motion capture created performance acting. So
right.
You never know. But that's going to bring, that's a new job that there was no such thing as performance acting. There was no need for it. Now we have a bunch of people who used to be dancers or used to be, artists, and they did that now because that's part of the job that we can actually have a good, living doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
it's like
it's a really good point, like about how what you do as a creative is like, you are not your tool. You are not the company that you work at. You are a person who creates things, and you're John Lennon had a quote one time. It's like, give me any instrument. I'll make a song out of it. I don't care. Like, it's the same thing with what we do. Like I've had the opportunity, I've been privileged enough to spend a lot of time in various studios. And I was just at Pixar last week, and I was showing a new thing that we had. And the one thing that stood out to me was just how and it's not just Pixar, it's like all the good companies, like how endlessly curious people are. Like I was giving a presentation, and afterward a woman came up, one of the material artists came up to me, the shading artist came up to me and was like, "What material is your shirt?" And I was like, "I don't know." But she was like, "Do you mind if I photograph?" And she just grabbed my shirt and she was photographing it and checking the seams and doing all this stuff because it was similar to a garment that she was trying to make. And I was and all I kept thinking about was man, how cool is this? It's no arrogance, no these are the best artists in the world doing their thing, and she was just coming up to me unabashed, unapologetic, let me see your shirt, okay, cool. And when you're around these people, it's just it's not, they don't think they're better than you, they don't think they're better than any process, they're not scared of new things, they're curious about everything. It's just this kind of just unapologetic emotion or excitement about doing the thing the best that they possibly can. And I always tell people, it's if you want to be a good artist, the times that I've been at my best is when I've allowed myself to get obsessed over something.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of fall. I was doing, I had to do a shoe design for something, and I just fell down this rabbit hole where everywhere I went, everything I saw was just about shoe design. I got the color inspiration. I went to, in San Francisco, there's a science museum I took my kids to, and there's an albino alligator there named Claude the albino alligator. And I was just the pink of the eyes, blending with kind of the greenish white of the skin. I was just obsessed with it. And I took a bunch of pictures of it, and I studied, and I used that in the design. And there were elements all throughout the day, and those weeks leading up to that. I pulled the spotted pattern on the side came from a plant that I saw, and I was in a car, and there were these lines on the side. I was like, "Oh, this looks fast. I'm going to use this in the sports shoe, in the tennis shoe, kind of thing." It's all just you end up doing your best work when you get out of your own way and stop overthinking things and just go, be obsessed with something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's, if you want to know how you get to Pixar, that's how you get to Pixar. By being that interested in things, there's no way around that one. Because if you're bored about what you do, then that's not going to work out for you.
Yeah, being bored or being intimidated by other people who are making awesome things, as opposed to oh my gosh, that's awesome. How did you do? let's like embracing that and running with it and not being intimidated, not letting that inner voice in your head get too loud to stop you from doing the thing that to reach your potential.
And we love creating. Even I lean more technical as an artist. I love the tool writing aspects. I love making things that people use. And I was on a walk and I was just thinking about an audiobook that I'd listened to, and this character has a really cool coat. And I was like, I bet I could make that. Because if I do, A, B, and C, and then I guess I could use blend shapes to do this, and just imagining step by step the creation of a rigged coat that is in and of itself a character, just because I was wearing a jacket that day and listening to an audiobook. Like, we love making stuff, and machines they just can't take that. They can't take that from us. They can certainly try, and executives will always cut corners. They love seeing that line go up. They love seeing those massive profit margins, and cutting out people is a real quick way to make that line go up. But in the end, I think it'll come around to, we do need the people. We can't simply click the animate button. The animate button joke has been around since I was a student. We still don't have an animate button for a very good reason. It won't work. They'll come around, but I think it'll take some adjusting and some time and a whole lot of screw ups. But it's not. It's not my corporate money.
It also I'll say this too, about studio heads are they're not all monsters just trying to screw over as many people as possible. They're good people. A lot of them were artists. They're trying to save jobs. That arrow going up and to the right means that they can keep people employed, and yes, they are trying to make as much profit as possible, and I'm not here to defend anybody in that type of position, but I will say that we're not surrounded by monsters who are trying to take everything away from us all the time. There are good ones out there. I won't go into a big, but just go look at the studio head of Annapurna Pictures, for instance. She's a phenomenal human being, and there's some other ones out there too. So I will say that the profitability of studios means that you have a job. Again, it's like that big production, arrow up and to the right. And yeah, again, of course, all that money doesn't trickle down into our pockets, but I had to move inside because I couldn't afford to build covering in my backyard for when it rains. So.
You have a backyard.
It's filled with rocks,
Michael.
And yes.
I want to segue to a hypothetical. So we have driven the conversations it's not going to go, AI, it's not going to go. But just to give context to our audience who have not been in production, what would need to happen? What are our needs? What is if AI did this, then we could imply it in our workflow?
Well, it's one thing too. There's a New York Times article that just came out about the new Tom Hanks, Robin Wright Penn film. Home, I think it's called. Here, something like that.
Here.
Just one word. It's one short word. Here. They used AI in that. They on set they had a screen that was it was basically a deep fake. It was like showing what they would look like younger in real time. The director and to them, it's everyone on set. Whether that was used in final production, I don't know. But that was helpful for them in their process. Awesome. I think, but so it is. There are little snippets here and there where it's starting to be used in production. But for me, it's like Emily was saying earlier with UV mapping. It's make this tedious thing easier for me. If anyone's used the generative fill or generative expand in Photoshop, that's what I use that probably more than anything else. It's oh man, I got this pattern, but it's square, and I got this form. I want it to be a background, and I want the format to be like landscape. I want it to be that. So I just crop it, move it out, and the Gen AI like extends the pattern. Like awesome. I just need help in individual tasks. I want to still make the thing.
Mm-hmm. I think in terms of animation specifically, if we're talking about final rendered images, as someone who works in the final rendered images section of the animation pipeline, it would need to have a level of consistency that I have yet to see, even frame to frame. Ideally, it wouldn't be trained on the work of people who didn't give their consent for their work to be used. So like if Disney wants to use all of their animated films and train their own model, great. I mean, not great. I don't like it, but at least they're not using the work of someone who's, just a hobby artist that posts their art on Twitter or something. And if we can get to that level of consistency, then maybe it could be used in something like shot planning, beat boards, but we can't even get it to get the same character in a turnaround yet. So it can't be used for character design. It can't be used for model sheets. It can't be used for these things. You can have them attempt to spit it out, but you still need an experienced character designer, a prop designer to fix it. So definitely consistency and, ethics. It's, ethics is one of those things that technology has kind of stopped thinking about, and I'd like to see a return to it.
Yeah, I think my answer would probably be something similar, especially in the design space, like character design or biz dev background. When it comes to designing a location, for example, like a living room or something like that, for sure, give me that task. Let me design it. Let me make all the choices. Let me put my own ethos in there, etc. But when it comes like the director is telling me, okay, I need like 17 shots of this from 5 different angles. If there was a way I could just scan the location once and like maybe tweak a slight little 3D model and then be able to use it as a draw over, little things that would help me technically kind of put things on model to help save time. But I would still want to reserve all the creative liberties myself to do so. So little things like that, or if I'm drawing a character and having to do like was said earlier, like a turnaround, little things to help me keep things on check. But I would not want it to completely overhaul my entire job as a designer.
Yeah, that's similar for me as well. I've never used it, and I won't use it until they train with stuff that people has, they either pay people or they figure out a way for people to opt in at the beginning of it. If they do that, then I'll use it because I think eventually it will be a fantastic tool. But until they do that, it's like you're fighting against yourself, kind of thing. It's like I don't want to join that, and you might eventually have to, but it's something that I don't need to do it for now. Now, if at work they say, well, you have to use this tool, I wouldn't be happy about it. But then at that moment, you have to make a choice for yourself and you say, well, I'll either won't work for this company or I'll just go along and, make sure I can make my mortgage payment. So you have to think about it at that moment. It hasn't happened, so knock on wood, hopefully it won't happen for a long time.
The one area that I've been kind of pushing, it's like my holy grail of AI too, is a smarter render engine. And that like if you I don't know anyone who is a lighter or anything that likes to twiddle with the anti-alias samples, the reflection. Stop it! Put your hand down.
I wrote a render engine in college for fun. Okay, don't.
Okay.
I was in engineering for 3 years. I will sit back.
On behalf of the dumb, lazy people, let me stand up and raise my hand. No, I think that there's some things like even just noise. You render something, it's noisy. You're telling me that I can't be an AI thing that analyzes it, understands where the noise is coming from, sets the samples appropriately, and gives me at least 90% of the way there. I would love that. I just think that anytime, and I use the word smart and dumb in a rendering engines are insane. They are so good. They are so thinking good now. But they require you because it's what we want. They require you to put in every bit of input, every light, every parameter, every bounce, calculate everything. I think that we could probably cut that down significantly and have like lesser, more intuitive controls that like lead to, and like, the renderer understands what the secondary issues are, the secondary things. Like, I need more, secondary bounce light from this object. And you're like, cool. Well, that means more samples. Like, all right, go ahead, do it. Like, I don't need to tell you everything. Go figure it out. So I think a smarter render engine like that would be helpful. Like, there's no reason why, it's just like, there's so many arbitrary times you click render and you just get a black frame. I guess, all right, I guess there's decimals in the wrong point here. Like, like, or just, how about better error messages for things like fatal error, blah, 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 blah. Like,
you can't have that.
Dude, you can't have that. Fatal error crash in Maya forever.
Exit code 137139.
Get that tattooed.
It is on the back of my eyelids when I sleep. I'm sorry.
Yes.
If I could fix it, I would. Unfortunately, I don't work at Autodesk. Actually, let's start there. Let's not even get into AI. I just want the companies that make the software to respond accordingly to user feedback. Let's start with user feedback, and then we can get into the thing it creates, because that's the same issue with AI. The user feedback does nothing. It's just like trying to get Autodesk to solve a problem. Nothing works because nobody gets back to you. Like, I can't go to Midjourney. That's a whole company, right? I can't go to Midjourney and be like, hey, I have specific feedback based on a user experience. Do something with this. Because they can't. They're not actually using a product or creating a product that can iterate in that sense. But like, if I go to Autodesk and be like, hey, my entire studio is having this problem with X software interfacing with Y software, and it's giving the following error code, help. They can say, yes, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to change this plugin, you're going to update this, and you can get a result out of that. You can't do that with generative AI, especially not on a user support, basis.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll see any sort of integration in large studios to any scale until they have that too. Because I love talking to our software vendors. They're my favorite because I feel like I go to them and I'm like, please, sir, I have an issue. Please help. They can't do that.
Maybe Autodesk recorded all their support calls. Maybe they can put it into the machine learning algorithm and fix it right problem.
And they can fix
That'll be wonderful.
Let's start there. Let's have the machines help us.
Let's do that. I get permission to record my call. Please fix it.
I know this is a recorded call. Yes, okay, please hear it. Please let a person hear it. I was promised the iRobot future where the robots will do the little tasks and I can focus on the big ones.
Just unload.
Will Smith lied to me.
But that being said, I'll put this on the recording. But that just reminded me. So we have a new the Substance team has a new tool called Viewer. They had a problem with it. They messaged me on LinkedIn. I talked to the team. I'm getting back to them. I'm going through it. If you have questions about Substance stuff, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn and I'll put you, because honestly, from on the other side of it, these are people who actually care a lot. Like, these products are their babies, and they are the number of times that people share screenshots of Reddit channels with good things or bad things, or hey guys, is there something we can do to help this person? It blew me away when I joined the company how many times people do that.
Yeah. I still get messages, message requests from back when I was a render wrangler, asking how to do things, or hey, this documentation is a little out of date. Do you know the solution to this? Of course I do. First of all, of course I do. Second of all, how did you figure out how to contact me of all people? Yeah, let's solve that problem. But having a person who knows your software and your product matters a lot when you're an end user. And it's third of all, pay me. They were paying me, so it's fine, AL. But there's just none of that right now in this generative AI space. And that is crucial to the creation of at least feature films and television. There is a level of communication that machines cannot replace.
It's the human touch from a
exactly.
Yep.
There's a human nuance to all these interactions and the conversations that happen. And because we can have these conversations, and because all human brains are a little bit different with our little firing synapses, what I take away from it and what someone else takes away from it can be two completely different things that inspire two completely different things that create two completely different experiences or products or films or stories. And it's the nuance of humanity.
Talking about that, I remember I was talking to Emily the other day, and she was mentioning that she's working in legal stuff for unions, and she's always revising the language that is being used so that they can talk to producers and get things done, right? And they would have, Emily was saying, you spend 3 hours just analyzing how you're going to word things out.
Yeah. Things have to be worded so specifically.
If that is wording, and it takes time to be very intentional to see who are we going to pitch, what are they interested in stuff. In imagery, we don't have just communication, we have visual communication. In words, any word can have a big shift of how it's interpreted. And in imagery is even more, there's more variables. For example, the lighting is one variable. The camera lens is another variable. The camera position is another variable. The color of your main character, the way they're dressed, the way they look. When we are doing films, there's so many intention, there's so many analysis of, if we tweak this, what would people feel? And the reason I asked, let's take this to the extreme, for me, the extreme is if with AI, you can have an iterative workflow, that's a bit closer to what we do, because we're always pushing and we're always tweaking, and it's the little details that make this company's great. So I do think that for media that are not that precise, for example, it could be an advertisement, although that is precise, but it could be a YouTuber, a content creation that they're excited to, express a specific imagery that they would want to, but they don't have the skills. Then AI will be incredibly convenient for them, and that will happen. There's going to be a lot of content and exploration and creativity there. But for the big studios, it's all about the little details. And to conclude this, I think that these tools of AI are somewhat of a generalist tool where they're trying to fit everything into one. That's why it's just prompting. It's just you type something and everybody can type. And as we know, we have always had this debate, generalist versus specialist. And our tools, our 3D tools and stuff like that, are specialized to our industry, to our needs, to how we craft stories. So the extreme would be that if you can have AI that is specialized on production, then there you're a little bit closer to what we do. Now I want to jump into the questions of our people. So go right ahead and fill out the Q&A if you have something to ask us. Oh, we have questions already.
There's a couple.
Let's see. Let's start with Bianca. Are studios more likely to take a pitch of an already existing IP, like a graphic novel?
Only if they already own the IP and you have permission to use the IP, or you own the IP which involves a ton of entertainment lawyers. Good luck. I looked into that at one point. I don't have the money. I don't know why. I thought it would be fun. This is why I like contract law. I thought it would be fun to look at rights acquisition as a hobby. I don't have that kind of money though. But if you own it and pitch it, maybe. If they have the existing IP, maybe. It all depends on fun legal stuff in the background, what they're allowed to do, what they have access to, things like that. It's like Rings of Power getting things piecemeal from the Tolkien estate. They can talk about one character, but they can't mention another by name. It's, we can present these things to studios, but it all comes down to the rights and who holds them and what you're allowed to do with them.
One of the things I can tackle onto this, if you're talking about from the perspective of it being like your own graphic novel, I will say that studios are a little bit more intrigued. As I mentioned earlier, they want to see winners. So if you do have like a graphic novel that you made and then you're building a fan base and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, we have fans like in Brazil, we have fans in the States, like everyone loves this little comic book that I made, they will kind of like raise a little eyebrow a little bit more so versus just like, hey, like I wrote a script and like, here's the script. I talked to some people recently at 3 Arts Entertainment management agency over in California. And that's one of the things that they asked me. They were like, especially as a creator, if I wanted to be a showrunner, awesome. If I have a script, great. I have like a bullet in the chamber I could use to shoot a story. If I have storyboards and like let's say a pilot animatic, okay, we're moving something. They almost wanted to see the entire thing planned out as a comic book because they were like, that's probably going to be the way that you can have almost the most. I'm not going to say all creative freedom because you're going to be making a partnership, so they're going to have some say so. But if you can map out your entire story in the form of a graphic novel, they're going to be like, this person has a destination they want to go to. They have a plan. They have something we can invest in. So they're going to feel almost a little bit more comfortable or safer investing in something like that. But then, like what was said earlier, on the back end of things, you definitely have to do a lot of investment. You have to do a lot of build up and a lot of preparation to make sure you get to that point. But yeah,
it's a lot easier to pitch something when you have the pictures or imagery to go along with it. It's just a lot easier for people to understand.
You just need to do everything in you can to make that leap of faith as short as possible, whether it's in you, okay, great. It's like, great. I've got this story that'll appeal to this audience. Awesome. I'm going to tell you about it. All right. That's a huge leap of faith. I made visuals of it. Okay, that's less. I've made visuals that I turned into a graphic novel. Less. I've had a visuals that I've turned into a graphic novel that is wildly successful in those audiences that I've mentioned. Done. Like that. That's it. Right. Like you have, because again, it's like you're an unknown product. The story's an unknown product. The carrier's an unknown product. Like it's not proven. Like it's not a proven commodity yet. You have to prove it out before, in some way, in order for somebody to have faith in you. And honestly, like, having an audience, having a following is a very powerful thing. Sam just like disappeared. He disappeared into his background.
Sam?
Is he okay?
Swallowed by the machine.
Get swallowed.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So it's like, and this is always what it goes back to. It's like, just make good things. Continue to make good stories, good visuals, good things. It'll build an audience. You can use that audience as leverage as you're going forward. It's like, look, and again, not like, but like you can, you have a proven commodity as an artist, as a creative, as a person in the world. Like it's something, yeah.
And the word that comes to mind is, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But the word that comes to mind is authenticity. So make sure that when you are telling your story, they're as authentic to you as possible. These are going to be things that people are going to look at and they're going to see that they have a voice. And if you have the most things prepared, they're going to see it as less of a liability. So because another thing that people have run into as well is like you might create this idea, it's going to be like Robin Hood set in Blade Runner, et cetera, et cetera. And then you pitch it to them and they're just kind of like, well, like we have 3 different ideas that are very similar to it. So the more that you use your voice, your authentic voice, I think that's something that people are going to really start getting behind.
I agree.
And also be careful what you wish for when pitching to a big studio. Again, like if you sell it to them, you sell it to them. I need people to know that. Like a perfect example is the Ice Age franchise. It was started by the guy Chris Wedge, who helped found Blue Sky, was the original director. He's the voice of Scrat. We made 5 films of it at Blue Sky. Great. Then Disney bought. Blue Sky sold, they sold to 20th Century Fox, who was then bought by Disney, who then shut down Blue Sky. And they just announced they're making Ice Age 6 without any of the people who built it. So it's like, be careful when you sell. Be careful wishing that you sell it to them because you don't own it anymore. And like literally, the guy who voiced Scrat is not part of the production of the characters that he created. Like,
I highly, to Michael's point, I highly recommend if you're going to be pitching something, whether it's yours, whether it's we are in a studio that has an existing IP, have an entertainment lawyer, have a contract. Don't go into that without, someone on your side. They're paid, but they're on your side, and they know legalese to a degree that most of us artists don't. And if you're selling an original thing, 1% of the net profits for merch rights, guys. Do it. Start getting that in contract.
Get that George Lucas money.
Get that sweet 1% of a gross, on like SpongeBob. Insane. That's 1%. Just aim for 1. It's more than you think.
Also, and so, I mean, people are saying this too. So if we're going to bring it back to AI making things easier and allowing you to do things, because like, again, I worked on animated films for a really long time. I also can't make one by myself. Like there are things that they're parts of the process that I'm terrible at. But if AI can make some of it easier, or like, then I can produce my own things. Then I can create my own things and have total control over it and total this and total that, and not feel beholden to these large studios for distribution because we have YouTube, because we have other things. A great example is Lucas's Spider was an animated short that was made by an animator at Blue Sky again. And it was just a cute thing that's adorable and awesome. I love Lucas too. My kids love Lucas. And because he made a thing himself, it's now a Netflix show. So he sold it to Netflix or somebody or some production company. But he could have continued to do that as a YouTube thing. But again, it's good. Just make good things, and good things will follow. Because again, they bought it because it was a proven audience of proven success of character and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Let's go to the next question. How are studios working out the legal aspect which came with AI being trained from their work? Are they doing anything about it?
We all know the legal hammers of Nintendo and Disney. If you've ever worked on something Marvel for Disney, you know how strict it is.
Oh, yes.
I was working on, God, it wasn't even Marvel at the time. But if you're like a vendor client, like when we went home at the start of COVID, I was working for a company that because the person who hired them as a vendor demanded it, we had to have essentially little security cameras watching us while we were working, just to see if anyone happened to pass our desk that wasn't us at home. We were sent home with like security cameras that were supposed to face us the entire workday. These companies don't want people that are not them to have their information to train on. And it's an interesting and very complicated legal space when it comes to copyright and likeness and who can use what when, depending on what individual contracts you've signed. That can also change things. So if studios want to have their own internal models with their own work, there's not a ton that we as the artists who make these things can do. We are being paid by a studio to create things for them. If I work for Disney and I light scenes for Disney, they can take those scenes and feed them into their own data set. And I do not own that work. I am being paid to work for a client to produce this work. So I think there's a bit of a disconnect for us as artists, especially when it comes to ownership. If you're working for a studio, you don't own what you make for them. You are allowed to use it in a portfolio. They can say, no, you're not allowed to use that. Nintendo, very strict on this. Disney, not so much. But we don't have ownership over these things unless we personally create them outside of a studio space. Then we can control how they're used. Then we legally own the thing we've created, whether you've filed that nice little copyright or trademark or whatever. What it comes down to is the consent and how these models like Midjourney and ChatGPT are getting the things that they're training on. And I think as these court cases continue, because there are many court cases right now, as they continue and as these rulings come, I think this space is going to change very rapidly towards smaller internal data sets. And, we have more and more companies come out and say we're not using it at all. There is a publishing company that said, we're not doing this. We're not feeding our books into that. We're not going to replace our authors. And I think people are going to see value in that and flock to that. And if they don't, that's fine. Consumers will consume what they want, how they want. We don't control that. So I think it's an ever-evolving space, and we're going to see some really interesting legal rulings in a couple of years, or maybe this year.
And I think you have to think and you have to realize ideas are not copyrightable. Work is copyrightable. So do the work. Simple as that. Do the work.
And it's also like, if I worked for any number of other companies, there's no way I would be able to do this webinar, right? Because they not only do they control your work, but like they're paying you to do a thing. And like, I know a lot of, people are like, hey, why don't, more artists at major companies post their work on social media? It's like, because they can't. They're not allowed to. They have like NDAs, and even then they're asked to not post personal work. Like Adobe's actually really great, and the Substance Teams is really great about letting me do things like this, and write my own newsletter and have my own stuff, and say my own opinions, as long as I just say views and opinions are my own on all my social media or whatever. I can say whatever I want. Like it's but you have to be very clear. I'm on a personal computer right now. I'm not using my work computer for any of this. I have very clear boundaries between what is my work and what is my personal. Anything that I post on the company Slack channel, that's work that they paid me to do, that I'm fully aware of my contract with them. And that work that is being posted there is not mine. Anything that's done on this computer with or any personal device that is not posted anywhere as part of that is mine. Like, and I have a very clear distinction between those two in my head and in my work and in my practice and how I approach things. So I always recommend that for people. Just go into it with like an open mind, like an open eyes, I should say. You're aware that you work for a company. Like when you work on an animated film, you're not making your film. You're making a film for somebody else. And it's a great job, and I love doing it, but it's not your project. And you have to ask them permission to put it on a demo reel, to put it on your website. And they can either grant it or not. Like, it's up to them. Now, I think that they're obviously a little bit too tight with those things, and I think that they're a little crazy about it. But at the same time, it's like it's not for me to say. It's their business. Think about it from like your standpoint. Like, I want to make a film production. I'm really excited about it. I wrote the thing. I hired these people to do it. I don't want them sharing things before I'm ready to have them shared. Like, it's just kind of the way it goes. I do have to apologize. I do have to get going. I have a medical appointment at the top of the hour that I have to get to. So I will, and I'll just hijack this because I assume this at the end. If anyone wants to reach out for more, like you can find me on LinkedIn. You can email me directly. My email's on there. You can message me on LinkedIn. That's usually the best place to reach me. I'm on all the other socials, but I don't like them because they make me sad as a person, and so I don't go on them as much anymore. But yeah, valid. Yeah, it's just I am a happier person when I'm teaching my kid how to ride a bike as opposed to doom scrolling on Twitter. So there's that. Okay, it was great seeing everybody. It was great meeting all of you. I will hopefully we can do this again. Sam, thank you again for organizing this.
Thank you for coming. And I think
so much.
Steven also has to go. So we'll wrap up with one more question. We'll dismiss Steven and Michael. And thank you both for being here.
Oh, dang. I was just about to say before Michael dipped, it would be a great time to see a picture of the five of us, but
it's too late. It's recorded. Like, so just take a screenshot when all of our eyes are open. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
We'll just lie.
Okay.
Bye, Steven.
Okay, so the next question, so we can wrap this, would be, I just recently found my passion for project management and directing for indie animation films I made. Prior to this, I primarily had a business background, but felt a lot of my strongest soft skills are transferable for this path. As someone who wants to get into production coordination producer, how do you feel AI will impact roles outside the creative department?
I think you're fine.
Yeah.
I have so many friends who work in production, and it doesn't matter what type of cats are being wrangled, you still need somebody to herd them. And that's what production does. Whether that artist is a human in studio that they can go harass for their deliverables, whether it's communicating with a vendor studio about a delivery or an upcoming holiday and coordinating who's in office when. And, production does these tasks that we don't do as artists because that's not our jobs. And it is a crucial part of the pipeline that, in my opinion, is irreplaceable. And when somebody isn't there and you need someone, you feel it. So I think if they attempt to replace production, it is the first point at which a pipeline will just be hamstringed. So I think production is pretty safe. Personally, you'll see the introduction of tools like things that are in Excel already, like, oh, I need to sum up this row or this column, or, this email has to go to a studio in Bangladesh and, it'll auto translate, like something like that. But there's still a human that needs to do the herding of the artistic cats.
Yeah, that's probably a similar sentiment that I was going to have. If anything, I don't think it's going to be affected by it, especially because of the necessity of it. But I definitely think that they might be some of the people in production, in a production team are probably going to be the people that are utilizing tools like that, like asset tracking when it comes to like if something like ShotGrid or Shotgun has a tool or a feature that can send out or ingest things a little bit easier. There's little things on the administrative side or the production side that could help them out a little bit. Oh, yeah.
Wow, Quinn, thank you for sending all that info.
Oh, do we have production people? Scroll. Oh, Quinn, you'd make a great production coordinator.
There we go. You're hired.
Done.
All right, then. Well,
I'm so good at this. Quinn is a production coordinator. We love you.
Well, thank you everyone for coming today. I can't thank you enough for being here. Thank you for everyone who shared this event. Quick question. Write in the comment section. I do career coaching. Is there anybody interested in something like that needs support on their portfolio and stuff like that? Yes.
Some yeses. There we go.
Got some yeses.
Perfect. So if you'd like to have some coaching, you can visit my website. It's called sampaganacademy.com. And there you go. And you can get ahead and schedule a session with me. Other than that, Adriel, is there anything you want to announce?
For me, let's see. I usually do a lot of print shops and things like that online. So you could access my print shop to see everything on Instagram. That's probably where you'll find me most active, but I do all my illustrations up there. I got some prints posted up behind me there of some pieces that I've done. So feel free to check that out. Other than that, be on the lookout. I just had a launch for a short film that I created, and we just finished up our film festival route. And we're like, when we're talking about stuff like pitching and launching comic books and stuff, those are some things I'm going to be in real time putting into practice with that IP. So keep an eye out for all the different things. Feel free to follow me on Instagram as well and ask questions. I'm constantly meeting with people to talk about career and portfolio goals as well. So yeah.
Perfect. Emily, where can people contact you? Anything you want to announce?
You can find me on LinkedIn, as many of you already have. I just opened my LinkedIn page to see a whole bunch of requests, so I will be going through those. If you are a studio or know a studio who is looking for a lighting and compositing artist, I have lead experience and backfilled as a supervisor. So if you need anyone who has experience with vendor studios, or you just want somebody with a really good creative eye, I am available for work. I have to support my cats. Look at this thing. Look at that.
I like that.
I have to support my children. I can't teach them how to ride a bike like Michael, so I can't really tug on those heartstrings. But look, she's so cute.
I like that. Like, lead with it. You're not supporting me. You're supporting the cats.
Exactly.
It's so that they can get medical care. They do deserve everything. You're correct, Chat.
Yeah.
But I also have to bounce. I have a dinner reservation coming up here.
Oh. Go to dinner. And also, if anyone is interested in more information about the Animation Guild, which is the animation union, or is interested in organizing your own studio, please reach out to me on LinkedIn and I can get you set up with the relevant people to talk to or answer any questions you may have about Tag 839.
Solid. And Emily, I will also probably be reaching out to you specifically for the legal animation advice. I think that's going to be phenomenal.
Oh, good. That's terrifying.
You're speaking
I'm doing
language.
a lot of like freelance and stuff like that. So just
I love contract law. It's a sickness.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely
awesome.
Yeah,
for sure.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank all the repeat people. Thank you for coming again. All the new people. So amazing to meet you. Hopefully you gained a lot of good insights. I think that the panel was phenomenal. I felt very honored to be just among the same people, or people that are pushing their career and pushing things forward. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Sam. Here's to another great event. And hopefully, everyone has our info. Feel free to connect with us and we'd love to connect with you.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Have a good night, everybody.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Night.